Putin has a problem. His subordinates in the Kremlin smell blood, his blood. It would appear that with the failure of his special operation in Ukraine and the ongoing unhappiness of the public and army, Putin is fast running out of friends and time. When the inevitable comes, who will replace him? A likely successor is Nikolai Patrushev. He is someone who has followed an almost identical path to Putin, having served as the head of Russia's security services and now working as Secretary of the Security Council of Russia. Putin held both roles back in the late 90s. He also has a similar worldview to the current Russian president. Just a few days before Russia invaded Ukraine, he accused the US of trying to instigate the collapse of the Russian Federation. 2 months later, Rebecca Koffler, a former intelligence officer with the DIA, warned that Patrushev rivals Putin as a villain, and is more barbaric than his master whilst also being more than happy to poison rivals. So, he has all the prerequisites for fame in the Russian political circle: delusion, aggression, and the potential to be a dictator. Alexander Bortnikov, the mysterious head of the Russian security services, is also a potential usurper of the throne. He has been in the role since 2008 and is one of Putin's closest allies, too close perhaps. In 2009, he was given the title of Hero of the Russian Federation. However, he hasn't cultivated any sort of public image, so there is little information about him. Bortnikov graduated from the Leningrad Institute for Railroad Transport Engineers before becoming a KGB spy. His biography also says that his talent was clear from an early age, separating himself from the rest with his logical thinking and highly developed intuition. He is also clearly humble. Bortnikov, like all potential leaders of Russia, is not known for his warmth and charm, but rather his happiness with butchering anyone who gets in his way. It was claimed that he oversaw the assassination of Alexander Litvinenko in Britain, the Russian national who had criticized Putin and branded Russia a mafia state, before he was poisoned with radioactive material in 2006. The Kremlin denied any involvement in the killing, like they would. It has also believed that Bortnikov gave the order to poison Alexei Navalny, the prominent Putin critic who is in prison on charges of fraud, contempt of court and parole violations. These charges are widely seen as an attempt by the Kremlin to silence him. You don't say. Then of course there is Old Faithful, his most trusted ally, Dmitry Medvedev. He took over as president in 2008 because the Russian constitution restricted presidents to 2 successive terms. But Medvedev paved the way for Putin to return in 2012 and loyally kissed his butt as Russian prime minister until 2020. Previously seen as slightly more moderate than the more hawkish figures in Russia, Medvedev has now ramped up his anti-Ukraine and anti-Western rhetoric. In August, he posted an unsettling message to his Telegram channel: "I hate the West. They are bastards and degenerates. They want us, Russia, to die. And while I'm still alive, I will do everything to make them disappear." Listen to the mouth on that guy. But Andrei Pertsev, a political commentator at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, doesn't believe that the shift in tone is an indication that Medvedev is vying for the top job. No, apparently, he has always been a twat and we just didn't know it. This leaves us with my favorite.
Оно уже въебало. Бортового нет.
Here is a guy who has been slowly developing his own army and a significant amount of global influence. I am talking about Putin's chef himself, Yevgeny Prigozhin. As the founder of Wagner Group, a private mercenary company, private in name only, he has slowly been establishing himself as completely irreplaceable in the eyes of his master Putin. His troops have been at the cutting edge of almost all of the major operations of the war thus far, because they are completely expendable. Wagner losses are not reported. They have been finding recruits at prisons that will not be cried over, and their forces are well stocked with cannon fodder, thus allowing regular army formations to avoid certain encounters where necessary. His biggest weakness is arguably his biggest strength: he is not an elected official, so any path to the leadership will be difficult. That being said, it also allows him to operate in the shadows. He is, or maybe now, was a trusted advisor and clearly had the ear of the leader. Their work in Africa has been a textbook case of influencing local opinions, then being available to support the local leaders in their civil wars or upheavals. There have been numerous reports of Wagner troops doing the dirty work by covertly murdering civilians on behalf of the local government, thus taking that hatred off the leaders. By doing this, they are purchasing goodwill along with mining rights and other financial incentives. There have been frequent pro-Russian marches in places like Equatorial Guinea and Mali, where crowds have chanted Russia, Russia. The part that should be concerning Putin is whether this goodwill is filtering back to the Kremlin or whether it lives and dies with Yevgeny. Of course, Putin will say nothing as he doesn't want to look like he isn't in control. Prigozhin and his underlings have started a campaign of pushback against the Kremlin and Defense Minister Shoigu. There have been protests amongst his men regarding available equipment and the leadership of the invasion as well as some direct threats. Recently he changed direction and openly praised the leader of the Ukraine, something that would have thoroughly irritated and annoyed Putin. Although he is the president of a country hostile to Russia at the moment, Zelensky is a strong, confident, pragmatic and nice guy, Prigozhin said in a statement shared on the Vkontakte social media platform by the press service of his Concord catering firm. Don't underestimate him, Prigozhin said in a second statement. Of course, this statement is perfectly accurate, but when the Kremlin has been so severely negative about the Ukrainian president, this was a sudden and unexpected departure from the norm, and we believe it was said as a passive-aggressive warning to Putin that his patience is wearing thin and that they don't necessarily see eye to eye anymore. So, the question is, when and how will Putin be deposed? Well, it all comes down to how much power Prigozhin has with the general army and the political mechanisms within government. This could also explain his overt attack on Shoigu, who may be the person standing in his way of further army support. He would need the backing of one or more those mentioned before him to make this a reality. We know he has the money, the manpower, but does he have the people in the right places? Only time will tell. When it does happen, it will be quick and extremely bloody. Putin will die of the illness that social media has been reporting on for some time. We believe that rumors of his illness have been spread by Wagner and no one else, that definitely have the capacity for misinformation, having proven it in Africa already. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe please.